Okay, we're going to continue on where we left off the other day. And I just want to go over quickly the infrastructure of Azure and how it technically works behind the scenes. So you can kind of get a little idea of how and why I'm trying to set up this SCIM server and get the SCIM scenarios working. And that's for the system cross domain identification management. And if we're looking at this picture here, really the way it is that you can make calls to Azure either through a PowerShell scripts, or you could go right onto the portal like we were doing the other day. We log in and then we change resources and so forth. Or you could do it through the Azure client command line integration, or whatever you want to call that, the CLI. And so, in any case, you're either going to do it kind of with this kind of scripting, these two methods, which are what you're going to need to do if you're doing an infrastructure as code, but we're not at that level yet. And we are going to do everything directly in as a dialogue user, and we're going to get there. And so we can, we make our templates up and get a feel for how things work through the portal. So we're making calls to Azure via the portal, technically through our browser. Theoretically, you could also have Postman, and you could use Postman, and you can do get calls and MS Graph and see users. But when you make that call there, you're trying to communicate to what they call the ARM, or the Azure Resource Manager. So it's kind of one of the first stops coming in here. But before that can actually happen, you got to get authenticated, and that's really what the trick of the game is here. Okay, and it's more, and before you really get down to that resource group and run that resource, there's some resource policies, there's limits on the resource itself, and then there's also financial commitments by the organization that there's the owner of the tenant. And then, of course, you have permissions for the user to be able to get at that resource and run the resource. Let's say the resource is a SharePoint folder. To get at that resource, you're going to have certain rules. And not everybody's going to get into the financial, SharePoint folders for payroll, but certain people will be on that team. Now, what is our tenant that we're working with here is our own personal tenant, and so it's a little bit different. We can do whatever we want, but what we call this here is kind of like the cloud framework, if you like, and this is how it works. It's not the same as this is virtualized with data centers behind it, and these are basically REST API endpoints we're dealing with. Okay, so that's what's going in and out of Azure Directory. Okay, there's HTTP calls. It's not let's say SOAP or XML, which is what SAP is running. So let's get rid of that. And that comes here from basically this article that you can go through on your own time, and it's talking about adoption journeys. And why am I talking about that? Well, let's just quickly go over what I'm trying to accomplish here and what I've done so far. And these videos are about 30 minutes long, and then I get cut off. So I did the first one, which is an intro, and I really recommend you do that. I'm just getting better at this. I'm not getting worse. I made that for kids, but anybody can watch this stuff and participate. Would be nice to get some feedback. So the first one, we talked about creating a strategy here, and this was actually pretty good. And this Brian guy, he shows the actual tool. And I thought, as a follow up, we're going to actually make the tool, and then we're going to learn as we go. So today, we're going to get involved in the cloud adoption framework. I think what is officially called I Have My Tenant, as you know. And these are a few new tools that we're going to look at. The Visual Studio, you probably want the community version 2022 is free, I think. Um, and then you want to have a GitHub account. That's important. And we're going to basically, through Visual Studio, we're going to clone this GitHub repository. But before we do that, we're going to basically fork off of it into our own GitHub repository, so that when we go into Visual Studio, we can just pull in and implement that code and everything from the cloud adoption framework. That's the CAF. So this is it. This is the framework, and this is what I'm trying to guide you guys on what steps to take. So if you're following along in the videos, you're and you've made it this far, you're doing really well. So when Rome wasn't built in a day. We started off with this naming convention, and that's what I explained in the other video. But if you're really serious about this, you're going to need some sort of naming tool. This is a really good exercise for us to make a naming tool very similar to the AZ Nitor app. Most companies will tell you, oh, we can't use it for whatever umpteen political reasons. But we discussed that last time. There's no excuse for that, and they're rookies. They just don't get it. So no problem. We are going to go to this website here at the GitHub, and I'm already signed in. This is the thing that we're basically making. So, we were looking at this the other day. This is a great thing. If we look at a resource group, you see, because I've selected that. So if I said, area was, West WE, they, for the same, that's the little two abbreviation. And let's maybe just do we could do a D there, which is good for us, right? But you see the redundancy there now, huh? Right. So again, this here, I didn't mention that in the first video or the second video I did, that you should do tagging, and we'll get into that later, and how it all works. But let's start here. What you're going to need to do um, is a few things. You're first going to need to have a GitHub account, and then you're going to need to be logged in. If you're not logged in, then you don't have all the features here. And also, you're going to want to have a Visual Studio installed, and that takes a few hours to get that up and running. If you don't have it, do it. You could also do this tutorial via Visual Code, and I highly recommend you install that too. That's completely free, and you need some extensions with that, and I run that also. But that's kind of the poor man's tool. But you need Visual Code working, okay? And you need to get the handle on how that works. But I'm going to show everything through Visual Studio, because that's really, if you're really serious about it, you would want to be working in Visual Studio. It's more like the Cadillac versus the Volkswagen. So what you need to do is you basically just need to fork it. Okay, and I have already forked this, so it works. But there's all different ways that you can download the cloud adoption framework. And if you see here, you have all these different options. So if you're not familiar with the GitHub, there's all sorts of guys out there that can teach you that. But you don't need to do any of that stuff. Okay, don't do it that way. Just follow my instructions, is how you do it. So you find your Git repositories and you basically fork them, put them into your own repository, and it makes it easier to work with. Okay. Now, before you do any forking, of course, you want to take a look at a repository's README. Okay, that's where you start. So you would just click on it, and that's where we are here. So it talks about the framework, and it gives a lot of good information. These are the key things you can get involved in this community. What I like, this is really cool, is they talk about, the C# programming. That's what we're going to talk about in Visual Studio. That's what we're going to be using. C# is the .NET. .NET is the Azure's framework that they're working with, and so you want to be a C# programmer. And they talk about bicep files. That's one technique of how to implement your resources. It's not a bad technique. And then I guess there's a few people that are interested in these other you see, there's no Docker file stuff here. It's mostly PowerShell. And that's exactly as how the tutorials do it, but you can use PowerShell. I won't be using PowerShell too much. I mean, I love PowerShell, it's great, but you actually want to be using the Azure CLI, which is kind of the direct ARM command. So you need to get good at that too. So there's a lot of stuff to learn. If you'll notice, there's only a certain amount of people watching. There's only been a certain amount of forks that have happened here, and there's really the big link there for it, and you can see there's, you can watch it. So this is really the repository for everything. Now let's go down in that down here a little bit further, and you can see that's pretty much the end of it. Where do you go from here? What are you supposed to do? What you have here is these workflows, and this is kind of the place to start. But don't worry about that for now. Like I said, get to this page. There's different umpteen ways to do it. Make sure you're signed in, right? And then you're going to end up with something like this. I'm signed in. I forked off of that. and I've got it here. Somebody could fork off of me. I gave it a star, and it's pinned. So this is the main one we're going to be working with. So it's here and ready. So now what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to open up my Visual Studio and get that going. And I could clone a repository right from here, and da 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 da. Okay, so typically, let's just keep this simple. I'm just going to clear that so you can get a view of what's going on. And you see again, he's in this mode, right? So create a Git repository or clone one. So just before I start there, let's split the screen a little bit, because there's what we want to do is I want to quickly just go back to my notepad and get that up on this side of the screen. So I can just sort of drag this across right over there, and that doesn't really work. So whatever used to work, that stuff. Okay, and then the other one is this studio here. So this is good. We've got them side by side. And this is important, guys. Get a big screen or get a couple screens going for this type of work. It's very hard to do this on a laptop. I know some guys they just think they're heroes for doing that, but they're not. Get the tools that you need for the job. And the tools today are going to be the GitHub, Visual Studio. Like I said, you're going to have your Azure account. So let's move along here. And what we're going to do is install the CAF. And where I want to start is the step is clone the CAF via Visual Studio, and then publish the web app to Azure. And what is the web app? It's similar to what we've seen in the Nitor app, but we're going to be building, let's say the approved Microsoft version of it that we can customize for ourselves. And this is a great exercise for us to go through to figure out how to do it. And I've already got my a resource group there ready to go. I'm trying to develop my API management service, right? I don't have any services particularly on there. We could take a look at that if we had time, but we're not really at that point. And my objective is, to get this Skim service up and running properly. And like I say, Brian did a great a tutorial on the naming tool that we're going to install now. And then there's the Matt Alford also had one, and the link was in the second video. So like I said, I'm trying my best, guys, and I hope I'll put this stuff, these notes along the way, and keep the videos going. I don't know how long the series is going to be, but eventually we'll get there. So now what we want to do is, if you look here, we could clone a repository. It's right off the bat. You also have here, you could do a new project. You could do a new repository. You could open an existing one or whatever. So those kind of where you go, and then you have the recent stuff. Okay, but let's just go here, clone a repository. Of course, I've got my GitHub and everything implemented. So that takes days, weeks. To get it organized. Depending if you're where you are. If you're in a corporate environment, it's tough if you could ever do anything like this. So you will be, if you're working at a place, you're going to have your own personal account anyways. Everybody should have a GitHub account. You're going to have your own personal computer set up like I do here, and you're going to be working in the evenings doing this sort of stuff and learning and doing. So here it is. This is the forked one that I copied in this GitHub. So I'm just going to click on it. You've already cloned to click open to get to the local. So let's see what he's got. He's saying that I've got it in here. And I did try this. I didn't go through with the whole thing. I'm just going to open it because he says open. So why not? And if it's there, it's there. So it does look like it's here. So he basically just clones this. And this is, like I said, a carbon copy of what we've seen over here, right? This is my, no, this is the micro, no, this is mine, and I've forked. And this is really, this folder here doesn't say slash workflows, but let's go in there. There's the workflows folder. And this is the one he's talking about. So the beauty of this here is, if you look here, I'm in the Solution Explorer, right? And we have kind of a we can do master branches with our GitHub and all that good stuff if you wanted to, right? So there's no changes been made yet, and that's kind of what it looks like. So if we go down here now, let's just dig into this. I think I don't know everything, so I'm just sort of no. Let's go into that folder, and if you notice, if I'm going on, this is the page to be on. Just so make sure you're on this page when you do your forking and stuff. So I'm going to go in here now, and let's just deploy. beauty of what we're doing here is it's very simple, actually. We've already done what we need to do. It's all ready for you now, so you don't need to fool around over there. So let's make this. I don't know if this helps, but basically, you have two buttons up here, so you know. And I'm not the expert in everything, and you got to sort of press around and figure things out and customize the screens the way you like. But generally speaking, you have a couple of options here that you can run this in debug mode now, or you can just run it, okay, without debugging, start without debugging. And this is really a just wonderful tool and how that works. And if you're looking here, we've got the entire project here. So if I kind of right click on it, I can go for publish, all right? Now I don't need to publish this right now, and you normally wouldn't publish something immediately. You would. Luckily here, you say this is not found in the repository. Select the secret. What other we got? Settings, configuration, release. This is the version of the software development kit. Hosting, subscription unknown, resource group unknown, and resource name. So he doesn't know what to call this Azure naming tool yet. So technically speaking, we should make up the names ahead of time and have them ready to go, because if we're going to publish. But before we publish, let's back up, because you wouldn't come here and publish i- as the first thing you do. You can in this case because this is from the GitHub and it works, but normally you don't do that. What you first things you're going to do is run it without debugging, just to make sure that the application and the GitHub that you downloaded is working. It's just a sanity check. You can also, like, say, build or rebuild. Quite often I just do the rebuild. I don't, I'm not the expert here either. You got to learn this stuff. I'm going to put some links on how to do C sharp. But what you got here is he basically says, okay, we've rebuilt everything. One succeeded, zero failed, zero skipped. So if something went wrong, you'd have this output with errors and stuff in there, but there's nothing there. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's ready to go. So we could give it a try. And you guys are going to like that when I do. But before we do that, let's just quickly take a look at what's here. And this is kind of very dynamic. And I think what's happened is I think I push some buttons ahead of time, and then it's changes to some shared folders, and there's a ton of stuff in here, and it just goes on and on. There's some blank text, and it's got this little icon, and so if you click it, it's empty file. So maybe this is the settings are going to right now it's just blank text, for example, I guess. And he's got these services, admin log services, and this is all C sharp code, and you see that by the C and the hash tag. That's the symbol for it. And then you could open them up, each one. And so this is the admin log service. So if I double click on that, and this is what we call the tree view of it. So this would be this part here. So if I click on there, and there's the class, right? This is the admin log service class, and it's a public class, so it's accessible, and it's in the namespace Azure naming services, right? So where do we see that? That's right above it, right? So you see it works all the way down the same way. So then we have this service response there, right? So a service response, this is C sharp, and we don't need to get into this right now. I'm going to kill you guys with too much information, but go through some of this stuff, figure it out. But the first thing you want to always do is just run it, okay? And when you run that, it basically is going to pop up another screen, and I'm just going to bring it over, and let's maybe bring it here, okay, so we can kind of follow a little bit along. This is the actual app, and it's running on the local host in that port 61220, and that would be somewhere in the properties probably. There it is there, right? Application URL, local host, and then you got to see the HTTPS, and then you've got just the same one, but let's see what the number is there, and it's 21 versus, so I don't know why he comes up with that number. You could change them if you want. And then you see here's an environmental variable, and it's the development that's good for us. Bang on. They're talking our language, the launch, the browser, true. So that's why he launched this browser here, and that's why we see it here. Okay. Now there's a lot of other pieces here. Somewhere in here, I think there's a swagger. Let's see if I can do the search thing here. I'm always having problems trying to navigate and figure my way around. And there's the search bar there. And let's go swag. And I'm just gonna, oh, look, he did it on his own. So he has the swagger here, and he's using this swashbuckle whatever swagger generator, Microsoft Open Appy. And these are the two libraries that he's using. So when we're referring in the code here, he's referring to these libraries and making special calls via that library. There's an API key involved to do this, right? So let's just try it out over here. We've got all that good stuff happening, and we're not really in the Swagger. That would be kind of a different thing, but we're on the actual app. But you're going to get a feel for this pretty fast. And like I said, there's tutorials on it. You can view the instructions. The admin, you have to log in. I think I already did this once, so I'm log out now if I want. I can generate the API key, save it somewhere for now. And we're going to save this sort of API keys and secrets and things like that in a key vault. And that's part of the series is we need to set up a key vault eventually. So that's another major resource that we have to get going. But what we did is we were very successful here today, and we created the app. It's running, but what we really want to do, let's get rid of this search, is we want to, like I say, publish it. And the problem with that, again, is that we need the naming convention. Okay. And I need to get that up. That's the other one. So just hang on a second here and let's see if I can pop this up from the other browser window, because this thing automatically is, Microsoft opening all these different windows on me. And this is why I say you got to get a handle. Just navigating is part of the problem and getting your way around. So we've got the resource group, and let's go here and say we're going to publish it. So I right click on the solution here, basically just below the solution. Actually, can we do it from here? No, you see it's a dynamic menu. You have to do it from the app, right? And we did the rebuild there, and now we're going to do the publish. Get a handle on this stuff and how it works, guys and girls. So let's do, this is a new published profile, and he's going to be trying to do this on the fly. He wants to know the subscription, he wants to know the resource group, and he wants to know the name of this thing. So let's just get that sorted out right now. So I'm just going to basically copy this twice, right? Because he's going to need two things here. He needs the resource group. He needs a sub here. So let's just say sub. Okay, I have two pay as you goes, right? Pay as you go, right? And I think I made a note of it up here somewhere. It's this tenant. Well, that's the tenant, but it's not the same as the subscription. You could have several subs under you could have several subscriptions under a tenant. So your tenant is your main tenant. It's usually a single one. Let's just type that in, tenant. And we'll see some of the stuff maybe. Let's just give it a go. What do we say here? He says, open the troubleshooter guide. Click on all that stuff. API management is the service dependencies, the SQL database connection string name, default connect. Maybe he's going to build some other stuff while he does this, because he's going to need a little database for the Azure naming tool, and then he's probably going to say, "What's your name?" Maybe he automatically names stuff. So let's always good to do it once and try to do your dry runs, then do it, and then destroy it, and then do it properly. So don't feel bad. You can just delete everything. So that's why you want maybe a different resource group, and then you get it. But you want to know what's going on here. You really want to work through these dialogues and make sure they're working for you. So I clicked on the publish new, and I'm from the app Azure naming tool. That's how I got here. I click on you can select, I want a Docker style or whatever, but of course we want Azure. It's the only choice. And then it says here, specific target, Azure app service, or you could do the Linux app service. And he could do an app service, but we have one already, I think. So I'm going to say next here. And because I want Azure, I want as much Azure stuff and keep it Microsoft. And look, he's got this guy, some resource group, pay as you go. So let's just see here. I got another pay as you go, and there's nothing there there's an app service there, and there's the API management there. Look at this. This is really cool, isn't it? So I'm going through dry run. I'm on the fly, and I'm looking for the other one, and I'm not really seeing it there. And he's got deployment slots. So he's saying, "Oh, create it," and that's definitely not the one I want. This was some sample I did for the skim that we're trying to do, and this was a resource group for that. And we already had a resource group. Remember, we did this one, but it's the APIM. Maybe it's not the best name for this one. Let's do a new one, because this is a good idea to come up with your own, for your separate little resource group for all the resources that you're going to need for this, including the SQL. So let's make the resource group, and let's call it the naming tool. Okay. And let's just make sure I'm making this up on the fly, as I always do. I just go for it, and not the naming king, naming tool. So this is tool V1, right? So I can do it like that, or I could why don't I do it? And remember, we said no capital letters, right? And remember, I said it's got to be short, naming tool. So why don't we go, and the other guy had that night tour, and it's got to be short. You want to this is the second part, and it's the workload. Remember, workload is what we're trying for, and then the process, right? So this is a tool, right, and an application. So the process, I like that V1 thing, and I don't do the V0 one, because it indicates to me V1 that it doesn't have a lot. It's not like there's going to be 100 of these. But the API management, maybe it wasn't the best name for that resource group. And like I said, with the Terraform, you can build and destroy and rebuild with the right names as you could define. So it becomes very easy once you've done it once correctly. Then just changing the name becomes easy with infrastructure as code. So it's not the end of the world if we don't get the names right here, if we're doing this basically as a dialogue dry run. So the workload, we're going to call it, of course, something meaningful, and let's just call it the AZ tool. Okay. Now we call it the naming tool, but we know what this is. So I'm going to go with that one. So going to need that, right? So let's create here. And he says an app service. So this is the bloody app service, right? So, it's going to be a little bit different name, AKD, and I'll say APS, app service. Maybe I don't even know what that thing is. And he's saying the naming tool, app service, create. You got to be careful. But like I said, oh, look here. He's got the right resource group and the hosting name. Let's just go there. And you see, remember I talked about the East thing. But this name and this name, I think, are the same, maybe. And let's just see. You see, we've got all that new there, right? Okay, let's be careful now. We know what we're doing. Oh, we don't. Let's go and Control Z. Oh, just in time. Just in time. I like this. AKD dash. And what is this? This is a app service, right? Now I haven't made the tool yet, so I'm just going to go back to that AZ Tools app, right? And you see he's refreshed, so I'm going to put my AKD in here, right? And I'm taking the environment out, and I'm taking the location out, and I'm putting the random one here. And the resource type, that's what we always have to figure out, is second. And here, this could technically, I always want to maximize them, okay? So that's 6 and 16. And that's the work process part. So now I don't know if you see this. I'm going to filter this on the type, I guess. No, that's the sort. So I need this part here. And I always get mixed up. Now you don't need any of that. You'd want it here. Group by scope or name. So let's go name contains, and we say just app, and we let it, and it's insights the name. What do we got here? Maybe it's hidden behind here. No, you see how that didn't work? So we go another filter, and I'm looking for app service. So, you know, it's not coming up like that based on the name, which is a little bit surprising to me, to be quite honest. And what's this guy behind? That's still the hub thing. Where's the app service? And I thought we made one before, but it doesn't seem to come up. And we'll make a separate one. That's okay. That's no problem for the app service. It's a nice idea to isolate it, so you just have the one app service for the one app. You could have an app service for many apps, and then it's all bundled together, kind of. So separating stuff out is not a bad idea, because then you isolate it and it's not used by some other application. So when you make changes, you're not sort of affecting the other thing. So name was no good. I'm going to go for the asset type, and then we're getting a lot more here. And I'm going to go app again, trying to go app again here. You can see it's not so easy. Our tool is going to be way better. Okay, guys, just so you know, app. It's got to be in here. This is the function app. This is kind of a drag, because I do these videos online and I should be more prepared to get you exactly the text. But I kind of, in a way, want you guys to see how awkward and difficult these things can be and how challenging. And I go through the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off all of it, right? And then he gives everything. It's all on this page, kind of all of them. You can see I'm scrolling around, and this is this guy. So let's go Control F, and this is not uncommon to get stuck. So I go app, and then let's just see what's going on here, and they should be alphabetical app, and you can see it's not so easy. There's lots of stuff on the pages, lots of resources with the word app in there. I could type in service, right? There's zero. Zero app service. You think, well, what's going on? There's an app configuration store. One of those, and just make sure. App insights, application gateway. We want one of those later, sooner or later. But this is the thing, eh? This guy maybe hasn't updated this app in a long time, or who knows? You don't know that, and you get lost, because this isn't Microsoft. And that's the key here. And this was an example. So let's go back here for a second and go, well, this would be better if we, do it this way with the cloud adoption framework, and use this. And so it's a little bit confusing, isn't it? Why app service create? Is this the name of the app, or is this an app service that I need to create, or is it a hosting plan, a group, a subscription? And this is why it's so nice to have this prefix, because the truth is we don't know. And so we're confused. We've never done this tutorial before. I'm doing it on the fly, like I always do everything. I'm just making it up as I go along. But what I like about this name is it's pretty good. I've got this part here, and then this is my second fragment, maybe, right? And then what they do automatically is they just stick in this date and time to make it unique, because if you just press create, it wouldn't work unless it was unique. But it's unique now because of my prefix. And the truth is, I've got these parts to it already, kind of, and he did it in capital camel case, basically. So, and he's got this hosting plan. We're going to do a new one of those in our zone, right? And this one, I don't need a new one of that. I've already got it, right? And we could have picked that other one, and we're going to keep that one. So this one is going to be new. So why don't we just go like fragment like this, just for fun. And it's the Azure naming tool, and that's the name of that service. it's pretty damn good name, but it doesn't. It's it's the problem is once you create this, you can't never rename them. So you have to get your names right on the first time. So the Azure naming tools maybe not so good because it's a few extra letters. So we're just gonna go, the AZ and naming tools. So naming is what it's all about. So just call it the tool. So now we've got three fragments. And you could call it like an N, like say maybe the N1. Why not? Why not? I like that N. I told you I like that N. I want that N. I love that N because it's kennel. You see, it's my N. It's my letter. And everything else looks pretty good. I don't, you see, I've got one there to pick, or is it two? And that's always confusing for me because it looks like it's only one. But then so you don't really get it just is the pay as you go. And so let's just be clear. Let's go back maybe to Azure again. We probably have to log in. So let's just get a new tab going and we've got our baby right there. So I'm going to sign in and he might ask me for a code or something if I didn't sign in the last time and I have to authenticate into the Active Directory. And if I wanted to create a resource, now check this out. I want to create this app service, right? So let me try it here now. And I type in app service. And there, oh, look, not an app service plan or an app service, just app service. What I'm looking for. And he has an app service certificate. He has the WordPress stuff. There's a plan. There's a web app. That's what we're basically making a function app, an app configuration, an appy app. I like that one. A lot of stuff here. And that's 26 more pages based on that name. So you can see what's going on here. We don't really know. We don't know. There's 500 of this stuff called app service, and this is app service Windows. So we'll try that Windows and see what happens. We're gonna press enter, I guess. There's one. It's called the Intelligent Rail Network Windows. So you see what I'm saying, guys? You were trying to create something this way. This is the way to do it. And then you try to do it this way and you're trying to follow it doesn't kind of work, so you just kind of go for it, right? You get your naming conventions working. That looks good. This looks good. This resource group looks kind of funny, so I'm gonna just, you see that there, what did he come up with? I had an N one here, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. And you see how I'm backing up, and maybe I'm going to do V1 just to see what happens now. And he's still doing this in this resource group. I wanted to put it in our existing resource group, as you remember. And then he's got this thing here. This isn't right. So because we would want to correct it, right? So the new resource group, right? We can't put in the old one. He doesn't allow us to select it. So we're going to call it the same, right? And maybe because this is a resource group now, that part we know. So we just back up there one and RG for resource group and AZ tool now. Not bad, right? Why don't we go with that? It's the resource group for the AZ tool. And we can make everything underneath that for the tooling, but it's really the calf stuff we're making, isn't it? It is really the workload is the calf workload. Okay, calf is better. This is that group, and then V1. There's not going to be a lot of these babies, so that is a really good group name, and he's got a star on it. And now he's into the hosting name, and that's what he's picking for. I mean, it's not a great name at all. It doesn't follow our naming conventions, so we're going to go new. And I'm going to leave that, you see, and then I go AKD, right? And this is a hosting plan. Now, this is key. This is what I'm trying to get at here. We need to know the abbreviation. So I could type in here, HP, right? Because I got to get that resource name. Now, I didn't mention this at all before, but if we look at Azure resource resource. I'm tested. I gotta someday. I'm gonna learn how to resource manage a resource and say resource manager overview. And what I'm looking for, the resource center, list of all resource types. And these guys over at Stack Overflow are asking some good questions. Again, a place that you would want to log in. You can easily log in with the GitHub account. Then he says, "Do you want to associate it?" So you say yes. He says it's the personal account. I'm not seeing the SAP name there particularly because it's not it's my GitHub account is connecting to the Stack Overflow. Okay, so I'm going to authorize that. So always keep an eye on what you're doing, right? And you could ask a question here. This is the collective, and I think we're now entered the Borg. So that's me, Angelo Kennel, and I'm in the Stack Overflow and the list of Azure types of resources. It seems to look a little bit different. Would you recommend Microsoft? I always recommend them because it's just the way we're going to do things around here. And there's Alberto. I like him. And you can have a list, a provider list. You can use the providers list API along with the expand resource types alias query, a parameter to give you everything you need. Well, it's probably a good tip. Flagging the entire list is also available here for the list providers and here for the types and actions. Like I said, he's doing a good job. He did that 3 years ago or whatever. So check the dates, check what they're doing and how they did it. So make sure the question pertains to what you're doing. Check the dates, when it was asked, how many people viewed it, if there's some, part of the Microsoft Azure collective. Okay. You have entered the Borg here. This is it, my friends. We're all in this together. You see the tags here too. This is all important stuff. So I hope we're recording and I hope everything is going well. And it seems to be so far, this is brain overload for people, but this is how you do it, flagging the entire. So let's go him. He had 3 answers on this. He had 7 upvotes. He had 2 upvotes on his. He gave some nice code with his stuff, but it looks too complicated. He's also, if you're using the bash with AZ and whatever installed and blah, 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 note that if you want to see the template references, then you can go to Learn Azure Templates. Note that as of this date, some resource types are missing. And he gives an example. So this is really, and you can participate here now that you know what you're talking about, and you can ask questions here if you're stuck. But always go over everything at least 3 times yourself and verify that you don't know what is going on and don't understand. Now he says check this table, and it's a super table here. Look, we got lucky, I think. So I'm going to do Control F here again. And now we got some more apps, and then we're going for a hosting plan. Actually, that's all we want. So host, and there's one. So I'm going to go there, try to go there. I'm always trying to do stuff, and we seem to struggle. Let's see if we go up. And I kind of sometimes give up and then try again. There's got to be a hosting plan here, and you would think things are in order. There's something going on here because I see a 1 there. So I'm thinking there's got to be a hosting plan here. Microsoft's, come on. And I don't want to cut out on you guys because I want you to see what I go through and the fun that I go through and the challenge. And it's like, you're always making this stuff up, right? And let's go for titles over here because this is like what I say, and search for host and all. Yeah, do it. Come on, resource naming restrictions and Azure resource management, and we did say host. So, and then he's got these tags and stuff, Microsoft, Entra, Azure. Well, it's definitely an Azure thing. And let's put the full name in here: hosting plan. 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 That's what it's all about. Hosting plans. I just want hosting plan, 8 results. Now we're narrowing it down, right? Providers and resource types. And we've seen that before when we were searching around. It seemed to be several hosting plans, right? So let's come here on that one. That kind of, there's a, resource provider thing. And this is really what happens, guys. You get stuck all over. The truth is, I thought making these videos was going to be a lot easier and I could just make it all up on the fly as I go and really do a natural thing so you guys could really follow along step for step. And you see, you kind of get stuck every once in a while. Well, when you get stuck like that, just keep going and just push and keep pushing the buttons until something happens. And hopefully you end up with something that's half decent. And it's always the first try, man. That's the way these things are. So you don't really, you know. So, anyways, I got this resource group here, and I got stuck on that hosting plan, and he's talking about this stuff and connect. It won't work yet this way, and you end up with this failed that I failed at 9:40. It was like 2 hours ago. I got stuck, and I took a break, and that's what you do. You get stuck, take a break, walk away. Take some deep breaths and, think about what you're doing. Record your problem. And I don't think I mentioned this, but I basically recorded it. The next steps was when pubbing, the below area occurs, fix the config with the AZ tool with the web app public version. And it's the public version. So when I go publish here, I filled out all the stuff, I always prefix just the 80K and then just make a little name up after it. So, I tried the resource, it should be named in here. It's just like the resource name is called app server one. At a certain point, you probably give up, but stick with some good little formats for you and make up your, get consistent with your naming convention because it's important. And, I got this error here, right? And so you can copy the error. That's the end of it. You can't scroll down any further. So you then copy it. You can say okay, and you're right back here. And I've done it now at 11:11. That's a nice time, and it's PM though. And so then I copy that stuff into my current situation, right? I took the 9:40 screenshot, right? Always do a screenshot and do the text together. Maybe a timestamp you can throw it in. And always have a timestamp for sure. And so I did a little log there. So it was like when you see this was happening at PM 11:11, and this one was coming in at a different time at the 20. So it was just so I could really leave off and I could replicate the error, and there was enough information there. This is where I ended up, and there's a diagnostic log has been written to this location. So you could go in there and actually get like this sort of text and this sort of stuff there. They look at, it was successfully published, he says. So something did happen, right? But then I think he wanted to start running it, starting to update your appy here and then generating the Swagger file, right? And that Swagger JSON that's in this ready folder. And you see there's the repo. My source, repo a kennel, that's the guy he's talking about, but that's on my C drive, right? So that's Swagger. He had a problem with it. And we talked about the Swagger. It's very, very, very important to us that we have our Swagger tool. And he failed to generate the Swagger file. Error.net Swagger. So this is great information for search terms and, copying and pasting. He actually gives us the sort of the C# dump, if you like, and it was like could not load or file or assembly runtime neutral public key token. The locate assembly's manifest definition does not match the assembly reference file. This looks like a pretty easy thing to fix. So I'm not going to spend time here wasting your guys' time. I'm going to figure out how to fix this problem so that I can really publish it. And then so I'm going to come back and tell you how I did it, hopefully. But the nice part, like I said before, is I can already run the app. I click here. It opens up another window. This window pops up. and this stuff is working. I've logged in. You can see that nothing's there, so I log in. You know that it seems to be working well. There's the API key that we're going to be putting in the key vault later. I can log out and I can log in. There's probably ways to reset passwords and stuff like that. Eh? So, and you can, generate, a new key, right? What is that? The 069. I love that. But we'll leave that for now. So that's the key. There's a admin log. You can purge the admin log, but I just changed the key, so maybe we cancel that ID, and you can export the logs. And you also have dates and stuff, so you can see what happened, right? This is the first time. Remember we talked about our problems, but we had some stuff, so pretty interesting what's going on there. There's in the instructions. Again, remember we talked, there was the guys who did some super videos on this. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm missing or errors might even been in those videos. I didn't actually watch them. I should have. Again, preparation is key. If you prepare, then your chances of success are better, right? And that's the tension I want to get out of this. No attention references. So, investigate, generate log names, and this is great stuff, guys. So we're going to log out, and now we're logged out. We go to home again, right? We go to the admin, and we log in, and we log out. All right, I'm going to fix this problem, figure it out, and I hope we get a green publish the next time we see each other. So thank you very much for joining. Again, I would like to get some feedback. It helps me to know who I'm aiming at. And I did get one comment, just so you know, it was very good and it's very encouraging for me. It was a high school student who had said in my second video, "Thank you very much. It helped me to complete my high school project." So that tells me what type of audience I'm helping, and that's exactly who I'm aiming at. I'm aiming at the high school and the college guys who want to become experts and they know some stuff. And this is the place to start, is by getting this thing up and running. This is locally running now, and then we're going to publish it, and we're going to have it globally running for anybody. And it'll be anybody with the admin password is going to be logging in to Azure. Okay, so that's coming up next, folks. Enjoy, good luck, and dig in deep. If you are listening to this, by the way, you're the resistance. Good night. I'm always trying to press the wrong buttons here too, so I'm trying to get out.